Hey everybody, so welcome to another edition of the MFBA Success Series. Today we got John Kambs on the line with us. John is a refi master. Dustin Brumbley, who we all know, Dustin's like one of the super LOs, one of those guys that we all hear about, that we all strive to be. He was singing this guy's praises the other day, so we knew we had to get him on here, do a quick hangout. So as always, we're going to try to get right into it. No fluff, just 100% cool shit for you to use so we can all close some more loans. Fish, you got anything to add before we get this thing started here?
I got nothing, man. I'm just here for the ride.
All right. All right, John, well, welcome to the MFBA Hangouts, man. Thanks for joining us. What do you got for us today?
Dustin and I were just talking. I think there was a comment thread out there on refinances that I had commented on, and then it kind of snowballed into this hangout and how to view a refinance and how to really be able to sell it. I wouldn't even say sell a refinance, but how to really be able to motivate your clients to take the step and refinance, and how to look at it more simplistically, and how to also realize that there's probably just a ton of low-hanging fruit sitting in your backyard that I know as a LO before I learned a lot of the stuff I did. I would be going out searching, calling 3,000 people I don't know, and then when I became a little bit more educated, I realized, oh my gosh, there's business right here in front of my face staring at me that I was just completely ignoring because I was ignorant, is a good way to put it. So, so that translated into Dustin wanting to talk a little bit about how I structure refinance and the way I present them to get clients off the fence, and then we did a call, and then he obviously posted that. So that's what we're here for, and trying to think of the best way to start it, but I can probably start it with the way that I did it with Dustin. And I graduated with a degree in econ, so when I think 90% of the people that come into the mortgage business really kind of fall into it on accident, and the same thing happened with me. And it was one of those probably only occurrences in my life where I was like, oh wow, I actually really do use my degree, because when I was going through my training class, I really had a pretty thorough knowledge of everything that they were talking about, where a lot of the people in my training class were like deer in headlights, like they didn't really know anything when it came to like amortization, time value of money, and I was miles ahead of them. So I think that that really helped me strengthen my position in being able to be as good of an LO as I am here. That coupled with, I don't know if anybody here is still part of Vantage Production or Mortgage Market Guide, but I've most of the stuff I learned from a guy named Ed Conarchy. He does a thing called Conarchy's Corner on Mortgage Market Guide. So if you go there, I think it's under Sales Tools or something, and you can watch his videos. I'm pretty sure he's actually all over YouTube as well, and he's a really nice guy. You can always friend him on Facebook. He's very active on Facebook. But most of the stuff I really learned from him on how to present a refinance, and he's pretty much a student of Rick Edelman, the guy who wrote The Truth About Money, and his whole philosophy of the mortgage and how it's really a financial tool. So with that being said, a lot of my stuff is kind of, much as I like you guys to think I'm like a genius, it's canned and stolen from somewhere else. So I'm sure everybody's heard the power of, I think, the why question. So it's I think it's start with why. I never read the book just because I know that the person who presented it to me basically told me, hey, here's the premise. You don't even need to read the book. And the premise is that you start with why and then you go backwards, right? So I kind of had a mission statement or personal niche or what they call it, USP stolen from Loan Toolbox, where I said, you know, the mortgage, I view the mortgage as a financial tool that you interweave into long-term and short-term financial goals for clients. So when you start with why, it was, you know, hey, why do you do mortgages? And mine was, oh, I have a passion for educating my clients and helping them reach their long-term and short-term financial goals. I do this by managing the biggest debt that they'll most likely ever incur, their mortgage. So that being said, I really do embody that in my mortgage practice, where the mortgage is a financial tool, and the reason it's a financial tool is because of opportunity cost. And the fact of the matter is, if you have $400,000 to buy a home with, that $400,000 needs to be, you can do one of two things. You go get a mortgage, or you take $400,000 and buy it with cash. So the opportunity cost is obviously going to be, well, what's the opportunity cost or the cost of you sacrificing that money to do something else with? And obviously, if you're going to do a 30-year mortgage for $400,000, you would calculate opportunity cost based on average 30-year rate of return on the S&P 500, which is obviously 9.8%. So when you do a mortgage, the power of the mortgage and the reason it can be viewed as a financial tool would be that you have $400,000 you can do one of two things with. Again, you can get a mortgage or put it all into a house. And if you were to get a mortgage, obviously today, what, 3.5%, let's say. So the S&P 500 rate of return is 9.8%. And if you're paying 3.5% on a mortgage, and that's not even accounting for tax deductibility, why would you ever put any money down towards a home? Number one. Number two, why would you ever pay it off? You would be better off, any dollar you put towards that mortgage is better off invested from an opportunity cost standpoint. So that's really what I educate my clients on, and I really kind of set them up that, hey, you're going to refinance. Right when I do a purchase, I say, you know, rates are going to go down and you're going to refinance regardless of really what the market does. If typically, if let's say the market interest rates are a lot more in 5 years, then guess what? Typically that means that your property means that inflation has kicked in, usually, and your property should be worth more, which then all of a sudden, I can't tell you how many people I have that, you know, oh, I'm at 3.5%, I'm never going to refinance, this is the lowest interest rate I've ever had. 5 years later, they're refinancing to 4.25% to take cash out. So what I really focus on is, again, educating my clients on the fact that their mortgage is a financial tool. And the financial tool is the fact that you're taking advantage of the opportunity cost versus having that money in the home, and then obviously illiquid, not getting as big of a rate of return. And then I also believe in the best way to present an idea is to also point out the holes in it up front, right? Because that kind of makes people drop their guard. So the first thing I tell clients is after I present this, I say, the biggest hole in this is that if you're going to go and tell me that, hey, I'm going to just go and spend all my money frivolously, right? I'm not going to do it. If I do a 15-year mortgage versus a 30-year mortgage, the payment's $500 more. That $500 I'm not going to invest. That $500 I'm going to go frivolously spend. That $100 I have no plan. I have no discipline. Well, then the whole thing falls apart. So if you're one of those people, then I'll tell you, then yeah, do a 15-year mortgage. I'm not going to tell you to not save your money, right? If that's the only way that you can save your money is to do a shorter-term mortgage and you're just going to frivolously spend it all, you're not going to make a 5-minute call to your HR department to increase your 401k contribution, then the whole philosophy falls apart, right? And I think that that's a really easy way to kind of let clients bring their guard down, and it's really kind of throws it back in their face for when they try to refute you. You've already pretty much said, yeah, you're right. If you go spend all the money, then the whole philosophy falls apart. So that's pretty much the premise of how I sell a refinance, and why when you really are educated, you can really make an argument that, hell, even refinancing for the same rate, or even refinancing for a higher rate, can make a lot of sense to a lot of people if you know how to present it. Where when I was ignorant, I basically would say, oh, you're in a 30-year mortgage right now at 3.5%, you paid it for 5 years, I can only give you 3.75, so, you know, sorry, I can't really help you. Where now I can tell a client, well, hey, you paid it for 5 years, I can give you 3.75, and guess what? You get to re-amortize. Even though the rate's a little bit higher, you're re-amortizing, the payment's a little bit lower. You can take that money, put it in your 401k, cash out, do whatever. So once you're educated on it, once you can present it well, and once you can really, you know, Ed Connerty taught me that, you know, knowledge is power, right? So at the end of the day, most of the people I talk to, I know more than them when it comes to like the markets and how to structure a mortgage and how to structure their finances. So I don't really have many objections, especially once they see them that I have more knowledge than them, then all the objections are out the window. They just listen to what I say, and then typically they do it, right? I do run into random clients who are a horse to water situation, and those type of clients, if they're going to tell me, hey, John, I'm going to do a 15-year mortgage, I don't give a crap whether or not I'm putting zero away in retirement, but in 15 years I'm going to have the house paid for and have zero in retirement, and either you do it for me or I'm going to go somewhere else. So be it. I say, fine, let's do a 15-year mortgage. I'm not going to walk away from the business, but I do know that I've gained so many clients, so many referral partners, so many people by this type of knowledge and showing people a different way and a different way of thinking, where 90% of the loan officers that get a phone call from a client and the client says, well, I want to do a 15-year mortgage. Why would I want to do a 15-year mortgage? Those basically say, oh, well, the rate's a lot lower, and let me go ahead and add the 275 times 180 months, and let me go ahead and take the 3.5 you get with a 30-year mortgage and times that times 360 and subtract the 2 and look at how much money you're saving, right? Very canned, easy approach where I'm more, hey, actually a 15 years a ripoff. A 15 years a ripoff because the only reason the rate is lower is because the bank has less risk. It's not because they think you're a great person, right? And it actually benefits the bank more than it does you. So, and then I'll basically say the real way to compare a 15-year and a 30-year mortgage is how much do you pay in the first 15 years of the 30-year, taking into account tax deductibility, how much do you pay over the full 15-year on the 30-year, and what is the opportunity, calculating the opportunity cost on top of it. That's the true way to compare a 15-year and a 30-year. And when you do that, most clients have not a big aha when they say, wow, I'm actually, not only am I saving a lot more money with the 30-year, but I actually am much more financially secure. Because that's really what most people want. They want financial security. They think that financial security comes in the form of, oh, I own my house for free or clear. But real financial security comes from money in the bank. You can have a house free and clear, but obviously if you don't have money to pay your bills, then how financially secure are you? How many people do you see, I use this line a lot with my clients, is why do you think reverse mortgages are so huge right now? And the reason why is because a lot of the baby boomer generation bought into their great-grandparents and grandparents' philosophy of Great Depression when laws were completely different and the market crashed and the banks came in and said, hey, we hit hard times and either you pay your mortgage off in full or we foreclose. So they passed on a philosophy to them of, hey, you need to pay your house off so the bank can never take it. Well, laws are different now. And obviously, as long as you're making your minimum payment on your mortgage, they can never take your home. So you really see a lot of baby boomers now who basically paid off their mortgage and didn't save any of their money, did not max out their 401k, and now their house is paid off, and guess what? Expenses are more expensive, and the house technically, obviously everybody knows you don't technically ever not have a payment. You're always going to have your taxes and insurance that you have to keep up. So what happens is they realize that they need cash, and at this time, they don't have enough income, and they don't have any, their credit's usually crap, so what do they have to do? They got to go and take a reverse mortgage out. And don't get me started on a reverse mortgage, but obviously they're very costly. They're not a good deal in the grand scheme of things. But the whole reason for them is because of people buying into this notion of, oh, I've got to go and pay my house off and listen to Susie Orman and Dave Ramsey, and as soon as I pay my house off, I can finally start saving for retirement. And obviously, that's the wrong answer. The right answer is you take a mortgage, a 30-year mortgage, and you save as much as you can, and you take advantage of, the biggest weapon we have for everybody's financial security is time, right? So if you're going to tell me I'm going to wait 15 years to pay off my mortgage, then start investing, well, guess what? You just wasted 15 years for your money to grow. And obviously, the longer the amount of time, the more you can dollar cost average and ride the waves of the market volatility. So,
all right, John, let me jump in here real quick, my friend, because you're talking to a guy here with that studied psychology at a very small school in Western Maryland, and we are known for drinking beer, not much else out there. So, this is really cool. So you actually take the approach of being a mortgage planner here versus just a loan officer, kind of that old loan toolbox mortgage coach type of approach right there.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, the Rick Edelman, take the biggest, longest mortgage you can afford, and put your money into your other investments. So, and this is great and it makes sense. But my question to you is, how do you take the average consumer who touches base with you? Maybe this isn't someone that you did a purchase for. Maybe this is somebody who has been referred to you or you've marketed to, or whatever the case may be. If Mike Fisher is the average consumer, who's got a $200,000 mortgage, 3 kids and a stay-at-home mom or wife and in-laws and all this other kind of stuff, how would you present to him in a way that everything you just spoke about there makes sense? Do you use a total cost analysis tool? Do you have Excel sheets, slides? Kind of what do you do for that?
No, that's a good question. And what I do is I keep it really simple. I don't use Mortgage Coach. I don't use any Excel spreadsheets. And I try to Albert Einstein said, if you know something really well, you should be able to explain it simply. So I use that line a lot with my clients. And depending on the situation, but if it were, let's just say Mike calls me and says, hey, John, I have a 4% mortgage right now, and I want to refinance. I just want to do a straight up rate return refinance. And, there's a couple different objections that Mike could come up with, but let's just say that it's a regular canned presentation, and he says, can you save me any money? Well, what I typically do if he's at 4%, I would say, and I was showing Dustin this, but I learned this from Ed Carnegie as well, is a phenomenal way to do this is I used to basically say, okay, let's take $200,000 at 4%, here's the payment, let me take $200,000 at 375, calculate that payment, subtract the 2, here's your monthly savings, right? And number one, that produces a lower monthly savings than what there truly is, and the reason why is because of the amortization. So, and then number two, it takes a lot of time, right? I have to basically calculate 2 things and subtract out the 2, and potentially the client's lost at that point. So what I do now, what I would do for something like this, and this really works for any loan amount. Let's just say 99% of my loans are no cost refinances. So I would most likely tell Mike in this instance, hey, let's do 375. You don't pay any closing costs, and you get to save a quarter of a point. You've taken the cost objection off the table, and then guess what? The best part about doing the no closing cost refinance is 6 months later, it doesn't matter. If they're down to 3.5, we'll do it again, and you don't have to pay anything again. So I'm already setting them up. Hey, you could potentially refinance in the future, and so what I would technically do though is I would say 200,000, right? And I use the HP 12C, but I just use a regular old-fashioned calculator. So I would take 200,000, 0.25%, that's 500. I divide that by 12, $41.67. So I would basically tell Mike, I would say, hey, if I were to refinance you today, no closing costs, you would save $41.67 every month, and there's no cost to you at all. Now, I would also preface it though that I think when you do the figures on it, it's off the payment. I think it's probably $30, maybe $25 savings, right? So right after I tell him that, I say, listen, so when you do the calculation on your payment, it's going to be $25 less. Now, the reason why is because on average, you're paying the difference between the $41.67 and the $30 in payment. On average, you're making that big of a principal reduction more towards your loan. So it does 2 things. Number one, it makes it simple for them to understand. Number 2, I have a higher savings to present to them. And then, so that's typically how I would do that right off the bat. And if you'll see people, I see a lot of clients randomly who are like, well, I have 3.5% from Quicken or whatever, or 3.75, and they're paying a point. And really, that's just ammo in my gun, because I can really say, okay, well, you're wrong. Here's why you're wrong. Here's why you should be doing structuring the mortgage the way that without any closing costs. You look at your history. The average life of a loan is 5 to 7 years. Probably stuff that everybody hears for and can, but it gives me, obviously, right off the bat, I'm presented better than the person who's just like, oh, sure, let's go ahead and give you the lowest rate and charge you a point. So that's how I would do it.
So now, on that example you just said there, to the customer, to the average customer, the apples-to-apples comparison you say might be $25 per month. That's what they're seeing, versus what's leaving their bank account every month with the current mortgage to the refi. And they say, that's just, what's $25 to me? That's not even a half a tank of gas. I mean, kind of, how do you present or how do you structure things to show people that just that little bit of money right there, that little bit of savings, and obviously we all hope that's more, but that little bit of savings can benefit them in the long term.
No, so here's what I do. You're paying $200,000 at 4% right now, right? So what I would do is I would say, Mr. Client, you're at $200,000 at 4%. And just to keep it simple, I'll do it on a 30-year mortgage. Yeah, I am. So I say, okay, right now you pay $954.83 a month. I'm going to take taxes and insurance out of the equation. Those are things we can't control. But regardless, right now you pay $954.83 a month. Is that correct? Yes, it is. Okay, great. So I come in, I charge you no closing costs at all, and I give you a 3.75% interest rate, right? Right. So as I said, it's $41.67 a month savings. If you were to just re-amortize it, make your minimum payment, it's $25. You're already paying $954 a month, $954.83 at 4%, right? Right. Okay. So do you think $25 isn't worth it? Is that correct? Yes. So I say, okay, great. Well, what if you just continue to do exactly what you're doing right now, but you refinance for a quarter of a point lower? And they're like, okay. So what I usually say is, okay, let's calculate that, 375. But you continue to pay the $954.83, and then I solve for N. So what does that equal? That equals 341 payments, right? So in this scenario, you've basically knocked off 19 payments off your mortgage. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay, great. Well, you pay $954.83 right now, right? Yes, I do. Okay, so $954.83 times 19. It's $18,000 less over the life of the loan, right? So those people typically are like, oh, wow. That's when I say, okay, so you would probably have to take an hour to get in your paperwork. Is an hour worth your time worth $18,000? Then, if it's not, that's fine. Then you don't have to do anything. But if it were me, I would take it, right? So now I can sell $18,000 worth of savings versus, oh, I'm saving you $25 a month. And
right.
it's
So
a way of showing the clients
approach with this.
What's that?
So you're taking that mortgage planning approach here, where it's not just this one number, that most of us always do. Say, hey, great, you're skipping 2 months mortgage payments, getting an escrow refund, and you're saving $75 to $100 a month. You're taking it out there. You're saying at the end of this, if you stay in this loan for the rest of your life, you're going to knock off
basically a way to say, hey, you're continuing to pay $954, right? What if you just kept your payment the same, right? And all of a sudden you're not saving just $25 a month. You're saving $18,000. You're going to pay your mortgage off in 19 years less. And then you can also do it like, the old person, the person who says, how many times have you heard, oh, I don't want to start over, right? I paid 5 years, I don't want to start over, right? So what I'll do in that regard then, same thing. You can basically say, okay, fine. Right now you have 25 years left on your mortgage. You're paying 4%. Calculate the payment on that, and then I say, okay, I'm going to give you 375, and you're going to continue to make the same payment at 25 years. Or your 25-year payment right now, and I solve for N, and I turn around and say, okay, now you just saved 20 years off the life of the loan, right? So for me, it's more of a way just to get a client to be like, oh, wow, I really see the value in it. But then what I really typically do, though, is I go back and say, listen, this is, I don't recommend that you do that. I recommend that if you're saving $25 a month, I mean, the fact of the matter is that everybody should be at that, or striving to get to the or whatever that I think Dustin told me it's 18. I could have sworn it's 18.5, but the max amount that you can put in your 401k is really what, if I tell my clients that they should be doing everything they can to get every year a full $18,500 into that 401k and be budgeting accordingly. So, every little bit counts, right? So $25, guess what? $25 is actually, it's a bigger savings, but we'll just say $25. I tell a client, hey, guess what? 125%, since you're not going to be taxed on that 25, it's an extra $30 you can put in there a month, right? That's an extra $375 that you can put in your 401k, or I don't know, go start a college fund for your kids. There's a ton of places for you to put your money. I advise my clients to say, listen, you should be maxing out every tax-deferred investment that you possibly can before you're ever paying off a mortgage and paying off all your credit card debt and building up your 6 to 12 month reserve. Once those 3 things are done, fine, pay off your mortgage, but once you're educated, you would never pay off your mortgage. I would continue to invest it, put it in other investments. You don't have to take, just because your tax deferred investments are maxed doesn't mean you can't invest other places. You just can't tax defer it. But I think the statistics are something like 95% of the people aren't even doing that. So.
All right, so let's circle back around here, because again, lots of information, and and frankly, it just makes sense. It makes sense the way you're approaching this. And so from that mortgage planning perspective, and so when we first started, one of the things you mentioned was that there's opportunities all around you. You're as far as your prospecting and bringing new customers on board. How are you doing that right now? Is it all from your old database, or do you have a unique way of marketing your mortgage planning approach here?
Well, it's all from my database, really, and then it's all from I do probably, I would say 50 to 60% refi and 50% purchases. So when I really became educated on how to do this mortgage planning approach, I really realized that I'm like, oh wow, every refinance I do, or I'm sorry, every purchase I do is tomorrow's refinance, right? Because really, regardless of where the market's at, if rates were 5.25 today and I closed 40 purchases, let's just say average for this year, guess what? Rates in the next year or two might go down from 5.25, right? There's always going to be market fluctuations. So I just really keep tabs on borrowers that I did purchases for and alert them to opportunities when I can say, hey, guess what? The rate is an eighth of a point lower. Like I think on that thread that I had mentioned, I've done, I can't tell you how many clients for literally 1/8 of a point lower in interest rate. And I say, hey, you're not paying any closing costs, $400,000 loan. It's going to save you $40 a month. And what I also do, and I think this is kind of a big aha for me, is I say, you're going to get your escrow deposits back. You're going to skip 2 months, right? Your mortgage payment on, let's just say, $400,000 loan is all in $2,500, $2,500 a month. So I say, there's $5,000 for you to put in your 401k. Your escrow money, there's another $2,000, right? So now you put $7,000 more. You're $7,000 more closer to the $18,000 max, right? And then obviously the $7,000 that you put in your 401k is tax deferred, right? So you can put $7,000 in your 401k, and you just take 125% of it. So you take $7,000, you say, hey, $7,000 to you today at 125% is $87.50 in your 401k, since you're not taxed on it, right? So then you can really say to people, I mean, when you really do the numbers on it, you say, yeah, an eighth of a point in your interest rate from a monthly payment perspective isn't a lot. $7,000 contribution into your 401k for the next 30 years is huge, right? So those are really the sticking points that I am able to get more people to get off the fence on.
Cool. So now with your database, are you do you market to them every month and kind of in this style? Do you have a CRM that you're utilizing? How are you staying in contact with them? So in 2 years, when you call them up saying, hey, it's time to refi, they're not saying, well, who the hell are you? I just received 15 letters in the past 2 weeks telling me it's time to refi.
Yeah, no, I use the Vantage Production, the weekly market update thing. I don't know if anybody has seen that, but I think I pay like an extra $15 a month for it. So I'll tell clients as well, I'll say, hey, listen, you're going to get an email from me every week that shows you what the market's doing. It's a very layman's term kind of thing, but it'll tell you, this email, if you look at it, will tell you, hey, there's been a huge rally in the bond market, right? So I'll have a lot of clients that call me and just say, hey, I saw your emails coming out. And then I'll also tell them, I'll say, while we're refinancing, if rates go down, you're going to see it on my email that you get every week, right? And then I'll say we can float down if it's there, or most of the clients, like once you present this stuff to them though, I say, you're right, rates went down, and guess what? You're not paying any closing costs anyway, so we'll just do it again in 6 months. And it's like once you really set them up for this, they really, once all the objections are gone and once they've really bought into the philosophy, they're kind of chomping at the bit to refinance. So that's what I do though to keep in touch with them. They're on a weekly email. Some of them will opt out of that email. Some of them, and then those ones I do try to keep in contact with. But I've through Facebook, and then I've been doing this since '03, and I really started doing. I want to say in '08, I really started kind of managing a customer database and picking who are my top ones that I know really well, and so it's just kind of built itself. And I'm at a point where I don't really necessarily have to keep in touch with them that much. And I have probably lost a few deals just because I haven't kept in touch with them with certain people, and it hurts. But the good news is I've got enough that I haven't really it hasn't hurt to the point where it's been substantial.
Cool, awesome, man. Good stuff. Good stuff. Dustin, hope things are going well for you, man. You have anything to add? Any questions or anything you've taken from this you can add to it?
Yeah, I got quite a few things that I can add to it actually. I just had this kind of funny realization. My mom is also an econ major, and from probably '07 through '12, she refied like 6 times. Every time, 0.25%, no closing costs, and she was always like, it's worth it to me. So, I've never been of that mindset, but I think a big thing is that we get in the way of thinking it's a good deal, and we don't sell it because we don't believe in it. And John clearly believes in his philosophy, and so it allows him to sell it. I noticed a few other things. You said a phrase, the biggest hole in this plan. I really like that. And I think it's really key because it's not saying, oh, you're doing something wrong, or like, oh, that's a bad plan. It's just, hey, there's a hole in the plan. It's really kind of like non-confrontational. So I guess the other thing, I took a few other things from you yesterday that you didn't mention today on our personal phone call. One, you set this up from the beginning, like at the purchase, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that, positioning yourself as that advisor, as that person, and selling that way from the beginning, I gotta imagine helps you have an easier sort of conversation. The other thing you said to me yesterday is sometimes when people want to put down 20%, you talk them into putting down 5% so they can keep that money invested. Is that right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's like the first, like if you talk to, especially in a competitive situation, if somebody comes to me and says, hey, I'm talking to 4 other people and I'm putting 20% down, what can you do for me? I can do one of 2 things. I can be the 5th person that says, oh, here's my low interest rate and here's my 20% down, which really does nothing for me. I've just pretty much reduced myself to the lowest common denominator, and I'm just a dollar figure. So one of the strategies I've kind of just learned on my own is you're better off going completely different and challenging their thinking, right? And so what I would typically do with that client, assuming they have excellent credit, I would say, why would you put down 20%? You can do 5% down. I don't want to pay mortgage insurance. Okay, great. Well, you do lender paid mortgage insurance. The actual cost of the interest rate is, let's just say, today it's a much better, or it's like 0.375 difference, but rule of thumb, let's just say half a point higher for lender paid mortgage insurance. And so I basically say, for the same thing, $400,000 mortgage, you can put down, instead of $80,000, you can put down 20, if I'm not mistaken, if those numbers are right. So I basically said, you're going to keep $60,000 liquid if you ever need it, is the huge thing, number 1. Number 2, invested. And then number 3, you're really only paying 100 and whatever the numbers are. It's nominal. And when you and I tell clients as well, I'll say you have a 780 credit score. You're putting down, you can put down only 5%. Take advantage of it, because obviously, as most LOs know, once you're under 700 and you try to do LPMI, like, you're screwed. They basically make it like, okay, well, you're going to have to pay mortgage insurance, and so I that's kind of how I present it to them. I'm like, listen, the fact that they do this for you is a reason why you should take advantage of it, right? And then, a lot of people, they don't buy into it, but what have I done? I've completely differentiated myself, right? Where everybody else is just like, oh, great, here's my low rate, what do I got to do to get through loan close? I've taken a step back and said, hey, I'm going to present something completely different to you. And most people who are, I think I told you this, Dustin, like, when you get to like higher net worth individuals, they understand this, and they, for the most part, regardless of whether or not they do it, they can really appreciate the fact that I even presented it to them, and that I'm articulate and I can walk the walk and talk the talk with them. And every other mortgage LO out there typically is an order taker on the phone. So
yeah, it probably helps you have conversations with financial advisors as well for referrals. I gotta imagine taking this approach.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And you'll see, like, as financial planners, Rick Edelman, the guy who I learned a lot of the stuff from, he actually did I think he was, Ed Conacher was telling me that he wanted to go into journalism, and so he, for his dad's firm, was like, oh, I'm going to do an article on financial planners, and after going and talking to like 50 financial planners, he's like, oh my God, like, these financial planners are all completely useless. Like, they basically are just like Susie Ormans telling clients what they want to hear. They're not telling clients, like, hey, you shouldn't be putting your money into your mortgage. You have $40,000 in credit card debt. You should obviously refinance, even if it is at a higher interest rate, and then put all your money in your 401k. So that's actually how he got into financial planning, was because he realized how big of idiots the financial planning world is. So
I like it. I think it's a really holistic approach, looking at people's 401ks and their IRAs and their credit card debt and their down payment, and sort of putting all those pieces together that a lot of us could do a better job at, myself included.
Yeah, it's a holistic approach, and I think that the biggest thing that I've gotten from it is that really I've won so many deals just because of like the way I can present things and knowledge, right? Like, in regardless of whether or not they actually buy into my system, right? It's all about, who are you going to typically go with if you're buying a car? Are you going to go with the person who knows the most or the lowest price? And yeah, there's some people who will automatically say the lowest price, but I'm more of a person who respects, hey, as long as you're giving me a good deal and you really know your shit, I'm usually going to go with the latter. So
I'm good.
All right, thanks, Dustin. So, and by the way, I agree with you. I think one of the things I wrote down in my notes here is right up front saying, the biggest flaw in this plan, because I know just personally, as soon as I heard that, I was like, if someone said that to me, I'd be like, well, screw you, because I am the type of guy. You can't tell me that I'm not going to do this. I want to go ahead and invest my money into my 401k, even if I'm not.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a reverse psychology on it, and like throwing the ball back in their court and saying, hey, if you're not disciplined enough, then so be it. I get it. Then do your 15-year mortgage, right?
Yep, very cool. All right, man. We're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Again, John, it's a ton of stuff. Fish, do you have any questions? Anything you want to add to our this hangout?
No, I'm good. I mean, I think the guy that wants the 15-year, getting him off that, I'm going to be disciplined and looking at what else he has. Oh yeah, you're going to do this 15-year, but you're sitting on $25,000 credit card debt. We need to pay that off first. Well, it's at 0%. Okay, so you can play that game for a while. I mean, that just I think that's that getting people to consider what's missing in their plan, just like John said, is a great angle. I love it.
Yeah, one thing I'll say really quickly, because it helped me a lot, is I tell clients that every client I talk to, I say, listen, before you ever pay $1 off on your mortgage, you should do 3 things. And I've memorized these, obviously. I say you should be, number 1, maxing out your full 401k. The full amount, $18,500, not, oh, my employer. Most people think, oh, I put 6% away and my employer matches 6%. I've maxed out because I put 6% away. I have to educate them and say, no, your the full amount. But so I say number one, maxing out your full 401k. Number two, all your credit card, high interest credit card debt is paid off. And number three, 6 months to a year in reserves for all your monthly bills. And once those three criteria are met, then fine, you can look at a 15, 20-year, whatever mortgage you want. But once you're educated on the overall philosophy, most people say, why would you ever pay off a mortgage, right? But obviously, another good thing I tell clients, I say, do I really give a shit if Bill Gates has a 15-year mortgage? No, right? You know, the guy's worth how many billions of dollars, right? But if you're an average Joe like me or you, why in God's green earth would you take a 15-year mortgage? So,
very good stuff, man. So, you know, it's funny. I'm kind of thinking here as I'm looking back over my notes. Especially here in this MFBA group, we really seem to have two distinct type of loan officers. We have the purchase guys, we have the refi guys. And it's funny, the refi guys always want to become purchase guys always want to get the extra refi business. But you really have kind of set this up where you've got that balanced pipeline. You get to be both. You take care of your clients up front, you do a great job on the purchases, you set them up right away, you build that trust, you become that trusted advisor, but then you have that ability to, when the time is right for them, regardless of the situation, you know, in the market, and what's right for that particular customer, you're able to go back to them and generate that refi business and just constantly, you know, just build everything out right there. And I think that's huge, and that's what a lot of us strive for.
I'll take it a step further. Is I have a majority of them are calling me, being like, "Hey, can I refinance yet? When can I refinance?" Which is like, you know, much better. I don't have to. If you do it right and you get the right client, they're going to be coming to you being like, hey, when can you refinance me? Versus like me having to go to them, which obviously, as any salesperson knows, I'd rather have somebody calling me than me calling them. So,
yep, that's awesome. Well, what I'd like to do is get a few resources from you where the MFBA members can go and kind of look into this, get a little bit more. Once we do that, we'll put that down in the show notes. Once we actually create a show notes section, Fish, let's make a note that we need to go ahead and do that at some point. But you know, John, I think this is definitely something that you know, we should probably revisit and kind of break this down into smaller chunks where we can you know, start to understand a little bit more and get into a little bit more detail on some of the aspects of this. But man, it's been huge. I appreciate it. I appreciate spending 45 minutes with us today.
Absolutely.
Sharing everything. Unless you guys have anything else to add, anybody?
No, thank you.
All right, going. Gentlemen,
All right, guys. Thanks
so much. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.